Okay, we are live today. Dive into the shocking truth about toxic chemicals lurking in your makeup. Uncover the weirdest of weird routines of biohackers. We are going into the weird biohackers today, unfortunately. They're giving the community a bad name, I think. And learn why plunging your face into an ice bath might just be the life-changing hack you need. That is all coming up today on Biohacking News. Hello and welcome to Biohacking News. I'm Tony Wright, and before we go any further, please do like and subscribe. I'm going to bring on today's guest straight away, an OG biohacker who I've been really enjoying following on Instagram, Valerie Orsoni. Valerie, how you doing?
Doing great. Thank you very much, my dear, and thank you for having me.
It's really good. And obviously we do this live as well as on the podcast. And I appreciate you getting up so early in San Francisco where you're based. That is very good of you. Now, look, we've got all these amazing topics. We've got toxic makeup, which I know you've been posting about a lot, weird biohacking in the news this week, and ice bath face dips in the news as well. But before that, our first story is something that you've been posting about, I didn't know about. Tuna and chicken that is not really tuna and chicken. Can you tell us all about it?
Yeah, so the conclusion is that food sometimes can become like almost a chemistry class, at school. But it's not me saying, it's like large newspapers like New York Times and all. They took samples at Subway, fast food chains in the States, and some of them in Europe, and they analyzed the food. And surprise, the tuna had sometimes no tuna in it. And it's an independent lab that measured, what was in the tuna that was served, whether in sandwiches or salads or whatever. And it happened that the lab said there is no tuna DNA in the samples submitted. And that could mean two things. Either the food is so ultra processed that any trace of DNA has pretty much be so tampered with or whatever that it's not here anymore. Or B, maybe more likely, or both, is that they use other types of fish or no fish at all. This, I don't know. And then the chicken was also analyzed by a Canadian independent, outlet and lab. And chicken was pretty much half chicken and half something else, which could be fillers like soy protein or whatever. So it's kind of half vegan and half chicken. And then it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I mean, soy is not so bad for us if you eat it, a little bit. It's just the lies. It's also people thinking they're eating something healthy. Oh, a piece of tuna. But no, it's ultra processed. And then, the last thing, you have a British accent, so that will be closer to home. But Ireland said that the bread used in the Subway sandwiches did not qualify as bread because they use so much sugar that it qualifies as a pastry. So in conclusion, you think you're eating a tuna sandwich, but you're eating we don't know what pastry.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really stunning and depressing, isn't it? You sort of think you're making healthy options, but you're not.
But the first healthy choice would be to not go to these places, all this fast food, because as a biohacker, I mean, you know that as well. You need to enjoy the food and have this, be in the moment, I don't know, pleasure of eating the good food. If you just go and grab and eat as you drive, that's going against every grain we can think of when you're a biohacker.
Yeah. All that said, sometimes you're just hungry, aren't you? Or you just can't. I mean, the thing is, I think there's two things. Firstly, life gets in the way. And secondly, as a biohacker, I always try not to be too obsessive about, because I know I've got that side of my personality.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, right.
Yeah.
Too obsessive means you're lacking on the happiness factor. But to me, there is no happiness in eating these things. And I'd rather fast or have a few nuts in my purse. My nickname is the squirrel because I have nuts all over the place. I'd rather either fast or just buy a pouch of almonds somewhere than have this food. Frankly, I can count on two fingers how many times I've been in a fast food place in the past maybe 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I travel a lot. So I don't think it's an excuse, really. It's a question of habit,
Likewise, it's not so much, look, if you're sort of driving around the city, you know where you can get nice stuff. For us, for example, obviously I live in Portugal, and the food options at, say, Faro Airport are terrible, especially if you don't eat gluten. There's basically no options. And then you sort of think, like, I get blooming hungry, and I like a bit of intermittent fasting, but sometimes I just want to eat. So I try and prepare as much as possible, but sometimes it's not that easy.
Okay, that being said, Tony, if you eat it
Yeah,
once or twice, it's not going to kill anyone. I don't want to be always. Some
yeah.
biohackers are so extreme. They don't want
Mm.
anything in their body that's not perfect. And I think actually that's another subject about cultivating happiness. And I think if once in a while you eat bad food, drink a Coca-Cola, have a bad pastry or Twinkie or whatever, it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, I don't want to eat tuna that's not tuna.
But tuna is full of mercury anyway, so that's not even something we should eat that much.
Oh, that is very true. Okay, let's go on to our next story then. By the way, I ate so much tuna as a student, so much tuna, because I thought I was being healthy. I would cook up some pasta, open a can of tuna, tip it in. Happy days. I've got my protein. It's fish, so it's healthy. And only years later did I realize that my mercury levels were high. But there you go. Now I've got a great story I wanted to ask you about, and that is because I've been enjoying your video recently on 5 ways to boost your immunity, and this is because Andrew Huberman has returned to the public eye. Obviously, Biohackers' favorite. All the articles and stories about him recently. He's been on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's been talking about ice baths. And he's been saying, firstly, you'll benefit from cold therapy the most if you're someone who avoids the cold in the first place. But secondly, you've got to get your face wet. Do you really have to get your face wet when you do an ice bath? Well, he says what it does is it activates your mammalian diving reflex, which basically switches on all the parasympathetic nervous activity. So, what do you think? Firstly, colder exposure, but secondly, that's blooming hard getting your face in, isn't it?
Well, listen, when I was a little girl, my grandmother told me one thing, and she said, if you don't want to age, never put water on your face.
Mm.
I was an old grandma, piece of advice to a little girl, and I kept it in my brain. It doesn't mean I'm all dirty. It means I never use water on my face unless I go and swim in the ocean, which I love, or do a facial or whatever. I use other things. It could be coconut oil, which some people would say, oh, it clogs the pores or whatever. I use pretty much never water. I'm famous for that. Water is good. Cold water will have all whatever, Huberman has been saying. It has all these reflexes and stuff. But as a woman, he's a handsome guy, but he does have a few wrinkles. And I'm sorry. I mean, I love him. He's pretty strong and hot and whatever, but he has wrinkles, which on men looks sexy. On women, it doesn't. I'm sorry. That's really bad for us ladies. But anyway, it kind of strips your skin. I mean, if you do it a lot, if you really put water constantly on your face, it takes 4 hours for your pH to go back to what it was before it was put in contact with water. You have what we call transepidermal water loss, TEWL, which happens when actually water can actually dehydrate your skin, it sounds counterproductive.
Mm.
So I understand the good part of it, the shock, everything, the fact that it really helps improve the lymphatic flow, the fact that it boosts the blood flow, the fact that it tightens the pores and stimulates collagen. I think it's
Mm.
a choice. I found other ways to get the same result. And for the cold aspect, I do cryo. Of course, there's no water contact. I do cryotherapy. But the whole face thing, I agree, it is a cheap way to get results. It also sometimes helps with lymphatic drainage, according to some experts. I'm not sure, maybe yes. But this whole vasoconstriction
Mm.
is anti-inflammatory and it removes the puffiness. So what people like about it, it's the immediate effect. Like you hear someone say, hey, do that, you're going to look amazing. Yeah, before a party, you can do it. But you have to remember, it strips the oil from your skin because, of course, you don't dry like this. You're going to put some, towel
Mm.
and everything, and that's going to strip the oil barrier that protects your
Mm.
skin. And so I'm not a big fan of it for a regular standpoint, but like once in a while for a big party or an event or an interview with Tony Wrighton, for instance, you can do that to just have this glow at 7 a.m. That's what I did. But I don't think we should do it every day because of this whole oil barrier stripping effect.
So I have a feeling a lot of people will want me to say, when you are, for example, get ready for bed in the evening, do you not wash your face with water in the evening?
Never. ever. The only time, maybe I put water again, only if I swim, which of course it's hard to avoid since I like, but no, I use either, almond milk or any other things, but I try to avoid liquid, like even almond milk is water, but like olive oil, not olive oil, sorry, coconut oil, and or very lightly damp towels, but that's it. I never just flush it and rub it out or whatever. I don't.
Right. Yeah. So when you're sort of
I
like
know I'm
cleansing,
going against everyone, everything that
yeah,
everyone's saying, but that's my way of. I've been doing this since '98. I've been a biohacker, like a conscious biohacker, since 1998. So I
yeah.
don't go with fads. I learn, I study, and I apply.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. I'm just sort of thinking I'm going to do this. So because my wife likes to sort of, there's a sort of a bedtime routine which she's been trying to encourage me to do, which is use cleanser, which I've never used before, but I've been trying doing. I've been quite enjoying it. But how do you, for example, sort of like what would you use in the evening? So coconut oil or something like that to take
Yeah,
makeup
I
off
use
or to
that,
get
and
ready for
then
bed?
I just, I massage it nicely, and it's also part of the routine. All this contact is good for nerve endings and for stress level reduction. So it's more like a
Yeah.
self massage. This also for puffiness, you don't need water. You can do little massages like this, and that works amazingly well as well.
Mm.
You can ask your spouse or partner to do it for you, and
Yeah.
then I don't know what could happen, but it could be the opening of something cool. And then
Yeah.
I take a little damp cloth, and then I kind of rub off whatever comes off. And my son is 28 years old, and sometimes I tell him, don't put water because one day you look older than your mom, and that cannot happen.
Okay, well, for people who are interested in what happens if you actually do dunk your head in an ice bath when you get in, it activates this is what Huberman said this week. Parasympathetic activity in the autonomic nervous system. That means lowers your heart rate, makes you calmer, increases your tolerance for stress. So, as you say, maybe a special occasion. And also, it says that he said that some people get headaches when they do an ice bath. And apparently, if you dip your head in, then you won't necessarily get a headache because there's less temperature difference between your head and the rest of your body. Obviously, with all the usual disclaimers about don't do ice baths unless you're doing it under supervision, all the rest of it.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, you've got to put them in. You see, my main business is writing books, Valerie. I'm very good at writing disclaimers.
Me too. I've written 55 books. Believe me, I have tons of disclaimers.
Hang on, 55 books?
Yeah, translated in 5 languages. Yeah.
Wow. Brilliant. Well, look,
No, I
I'm
think he's right. I mean, of course, from the brain perspective, everything that promotes a calmer situation, which is exactly what it was really, pointing at. Whatever helps with the blood flow really helps with migraines and headaches and, you name it. So that for sure is a reality. If we're not talking about beauty, just talking about health, of course, we know it works. And as a matter of fact, there are clinics in Germany, and I love looking at Germany because they are very avant-garde when it comes to using old ways for helping people now. And they do that. They do use called, face ice bath and complete body ice bath for some people going through also, mild depression. It helps. There's this survival shock that helps improve a lot of hormone production. So I agree. So if we're not talking about anti-aging from a skin state perspective, he's totally right. Now I'm kind of adding my layer of I want my skin to look perfect. So so instead of doing the cold ice bath, I do cryo, like standing cryo where nothing touches me. And then I do it only if I need a face bath, only if I need it, but otherwise I don't.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you're on today because there are quite a few sort of skincare questions I wanted to ask you about, and I wanted to look today at the link between sort of makeup and toxins, which is something we've spoken about on this podcast quite a bit. And I did want to ask you
That's
about
because you put a
sunscreen
lot
in a
of
second.
makeup on.
Oh, I love a bit of makeup on. But I want to ask you about sunscreen in a second. But before that, I know you've been posting about how much lipstick you actually ingest over your life, and therefore how you really don't want to have toxic makeup. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the number, okay, quiz time. How much do we ingest, Tony? Did you watch the video?
No, I just thought I'd wait to ask you about it
Kidding.
today.
No, I'm kidding. On average, a woman will ingest 3 kilos. That's about 7 pounds. I mean, that sounds
Oh,
crazy
yeah.
of lipstick over the course of her life. And so that's why I was looking at, hey, what's in my lipstick? And
Mm,
is a green brand really green? It's not because it's organic and made in central Amazonia during a full moon night that it's perfectly healthy. It's also not because it's made abroad in Switzerland. People love using the Swiss flag. Somehow
mm.
that thing means it's healthy and good, and it can be priced with an extra zero. And so I'm looking at things, and I'm like, hold on a minute. Pretty much all makeup from the biggest brands have PFAS, and that's what we call the eternal chemicals. Once they're in your body, there's no way you can excrete it. Kind of like mercury, it stays, it's in your body
Mm,
forever. And so I looked at what was in the makeup, and pretty much every foundation, like 63%, I think the numbers are, mascara is about
mm,
83%, lipstick close to 100, they all have PFAS. And that's super toxic. It's linked to a vast array of illnesses, going from what I call nervous illnesses like depression and other issues we could have, to, of course, skincare issues, but mainly nervous ending problems. I mean, that's so bad. It should be banned,
mm.
And so I did some research, and very few brands, I sent maybe 200 emails personally. I did it because I wanted to have the pain, the growing pain of that thing. And I said, hey guys, can you confirm there is no PFAS in your makeup? Okay, none out of 200 responded, absolutely not. Some of them said, oh, we can guarantee in that lipstick there is none, or in that mascara there is none, or we cannot guarantee there is no cross contamination. It was very vague. So the conclusion is, pretty much everywhere you're going to find these in your makeup, unless you use, like, I don't know, some crushed berries for your lipstick or whatever. So decision I took was, first, I don't put as much as before. And you have to know that gloss, like 90% of the gloss, they have PFAS, because Teflon, which you find in your cookware, Teflon is a PFAS, and
Mm.
PFAS are used to make things long lasting and super sleek and non-sticky. So when you have long-lasting makeup, you are sure there is PFAS. So don't use any long-lasting makeup. You'd rather reapply it. And if you use gloss, no more than once a week, or only if you talk to Tony. Otherwise, no gloss.
My goodness.
And no
So,
mascara, because it goes through the eyes as well. So no mascara, just put eyelash extension instead.
okay. It's interesting because, as you were joking about the fact I don't use makeup before, I do sort of, I have really thought, because we moved to Portugal last year, and I read a brilliant quote this week about Portugal, which is, it's a cold country with a hot
I lived in
sun.
Portugal. I have a book that was translated in Portuguese. So I was
Really?
there a
Oh,
lot. Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the sun here is just unbelievably
yeah.
powerful. And I actually caught a suntan with factor 50 on in January here. That's how powerful the sun is. I
Wow.
tend to catch the sun quite quickly. And so I've really thought quite a lot about good non-toxic sunscreens. And to be honest, it's a struggle. And right now you may be able to see that it's sort of slightly white around my eyes because I've been trying out a new one called Fierce Nature. Lovely product. It uses tallow, but I still look like a bit of a clown when I put it on. So do you have any recommendations for sunscreen? Because of course some, especially darker skinned people, say, and this is a bit of a trend in the biohacking world, people will say, oh, you just need to avoid seed oils and put a hat on and you'll be fine. And I said to them, listen, mate, I can put a hat on and avoid seed oils and I still catch the sun. So I need something a little bit more.
I
So I'm interested
disagree
to know
with
what
these
you would
statements.
recommend.
I disagree with these statements. I mean, we need sun. I love sun. I'm from an island. I'm from Corsica. So, of course,
Yeah.
we need sun to be alive. We need sun for the bone health, for so many things, right? So I'm not opposed to being exposed, and we need to it. But too much is too much. I mean, the vast majority of biohackers would tell you, oh, you need the sun, are all wrinkly, or they do a lot of facelifts, which I've never done. So, I mean, hold on. I will take this with a grain of salt. Everything in excess is not good. That's my lesson in biohacking, really. So we need sunscreen. As a matter of fact, we know more about how much the sun damages our skin at the DNA level than how much a sunscreen could potentially be toxic. as far as I'm concerned, and I'm not sponsored or anything by any of the brands, I might say, but I've always gone with La Roche-Posay. I know it's a French brand which was banned in the States for a long time because they use some sunscreens that like people don't like, some products, But all of my friends, and I know 3 of them who had like skin cancer or who had like massive problems with their skin linked to sun exposure. They've been using this. So I really researched the products. And yeah, some biohackers might tell you there is that thing or that thing. But how long do we wear it for? I mean, unless you are constantly and like from 7 a.m. to 12, not 10 p.m. wearing it, it's not that long. And the risk benefit, balance to me is more important. I'd rather have a little bit of toxins from this in my body than buying this supernatural thing that's not going to, protect me at all. So I will have zero toxin, but I will have zero protection. So I stay away from the sun. In Corsica, we have a saying, and sorry for you, Tony, because you are from there, but between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., only the Brits and the dogs go out.
Yeah, that's actually also an English saying. We just say mad dogs and Englishmen. That's really funny. Yeah, okay. So I don't really know much about La Roche-Posay, but I've just looked it up on EWG's Skin Deep site, which is a site that ranks ingredients in sunscreen between 1 and 10. And 1 is best and 10 is worst. And 1 or 2 of the products are coming up. They've got a mineral sunscreen, which is coming up as 2. And then they've got some 3s. And then they've got some 4s and some the ultralight sunscreen fluid 6. That's
everything that's very fluid will have PFAS pretty much, the one we talked about in makeup. So if you go with the 2 and 3, it's fine. I mean, according to me, I'm not a doctor, but
yeah. But then would you not have the I sort of don't mind looking a bit weird, having these sort of white patches all over my face. But when I go and pick up my son from his school, all the teachers are so lovely at his school, and they're all immaculately turned out. And the head teacher said to me recently, she said, "You've got white bits all over your face." And I was like, "I know, that's my sunscreen," And I sort of, it'd been lovely to find a sunscreen that doesn't have a sort of a white finish on one's face, but maybe that's too much to ask.
It in a way. So I don't know if you know, but I do a lot of expeditions. Like I skied to the South Pole and I climb mountains and stuff. And so
no way, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
I did. And actually, in 6 weeks, I'm going back to Nepal for an expedition, 24,000 feet, pretty much.
Wow.
And so at first, I didn't want to wear this white thing because I'm like, there's no way I'm going to look like this. And then I realized over there, I do it. Here, I find a balance. I put 2 drops of almond oil in it to mix it, and it makes it more blendable and it's easier to apply. Also, you should not do it too much, but you warm it for like maybe 10 seconds. Don't warm it too much or you will destroy part of it. And then you apply and it makes it less white.
Yeah. Brian Johnson uses Elta MD sunscreen, which again doesn't come up that low on the EWG rankings.
No, I don't like it.
7. No.
Yeah.
And then I've been using a Korean brand called Numbuzin Number 1, which I did some research on, and that sort of comes up as a 4 on EWG as well. But it's not totally chemical free. But as you say, if I'm sort of going to a party or something here and it's outdoors and you sort of want to have something on without looking totally white, then that might be a good option. But it is difficult.
It is difficult. So that's, as you said, we can have 2 sunscreens. One where you're going outside to run and you don't care looking like a ghost. And if you have this big party in Hollywood, you know what? It's okay if one day you don't put sunscreen. It's not going to kill you either. It's a question of also like finding the balance.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this next story then, Valerie. I've been really looking forward to talking to you about this one. This was in the Independent a couple of days ago. 35-year-old biohacker says he lives like a vampire to look like a teenager forever. Now, I've sent you the link to this, but let me just tell you the story. He looks like a teenager. He looks so young. And one of his secrets to staying young is living like a vampire. His name is Brandon Miles May, and he avoids the sun as much as possible because it is the leading cause of skin damage. He's got a sunbrella, which he takes out all the time to protect his skin. And he doesn't go out unless before sunrise or after sunset. Now, with the caveat that I'm sure that, Brandon's a really nice chap.
Oh, hello. I don't see you anymore, Tony. It's like frozen. I'll take a photo to send. I'm going to send a message.
And living his own life, and people, Miles May.
Sorry,
Valerie, are
Tony.
you there? We just lost you then.
I lost you as well. You were all frozen.
Yeah, I know. Listen, we just moved into our new place in Portugal about 4 hours ago, and so I've no idea how good the Wi-Fi is here. But apologies if
So
it's not
it's all right.
perfect. But
So
I'm
you
yeah.
were frozen, like anti-aging totally.
Oh, perfect. Just like Brandon Miles May. If one thing of working in TV for 20 years taught me, and that is how to bullshit on demand. So I can do that as long as we like. Now,
Oh, me
Brandon
too.
Miles May then. So he uses a sunbrella and he doesn't go out unless before sunrise or after sunset. What do we think?
Okay, listen, I don't want to criticize this poor guy. And to be honest, does he even exist? Because everything about him is the same exact article verbatim from one source to the next and the same three photos. For all I know, that could be
Mm,
AI generated with fake news.
okay.
Uh, if this were
Yeah.
real, he doesn't look like a teenager. He looks like someone who has some sort of developmental issues as far as the body is concerned. He might
Mm,
have some sort of disease. I don't know. He doesn't look like a teenager. He looks like he has a problem. I don't know. Maybe he's banking on it as a biohacker. I don't know. But we all know that sunlight is not, of course, for the skin, it is an aging factor, but we do need it. And living, if the only source of vampire life is not going into the sun, he's going to have vitamin D deficiency. I mean, his
mm,
bone are going to have a massive problem and become maybe soft and deformed. He will have a weakened immune system. We need the
yeah.
vitamin D for our immune function. He's going to have mood disorders. There's no way that without sun at all, you don't have any mood disorders. I mean, it's like pretty much everyone has that. It doesn't have to happen overnight. It might happen later. But how does he even have a circadian rhythm? How does he have regular sleeping patterns when he has no sunlight to help, regulate his circadian rhythm? I mean, I don't get it. Oh, blood pressure. I mean, if you don't have sun exposure, we know now that you produce less nitric oxide or
Mm,
nitric oxide. I don't know how you pronounce it. Um, and that compound helps, dilate blood vessels. It lowers blood pressure. This guy doesn't have that compound, so
mm,
I don't know how he does it. Um, I don't know, even cognitive impairment. I mean, we know that a chronic vitamin D deficiency is associated with rapid cognitive decline and increased risk of, neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's and dementia. I mean, the list is so long. Muscle weakness. The only photo we see him in fully standing, he doesn't look strong at all. He looks like very tiny. And then, while we know that excessive sun exposure is bad, we know that a complete lack of sunlight, which, with the vitamin D deficiency, might increase so many other cancers like colon, breast,
mm.
and prostate. So I'm like, I don't get it, to be honest. I think this person is surely damaging his health if he really exists.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we wish him all the best. And sort of just moving away from him, and this is totally anecdotally, Valerie. I have noticed that wearing the Oura ring and sort of measuring all sorts of different things that might affect my heart rate variability. And just to remind people, the higher your heart rate variability, the better it sort of tends to be in terms of an indicator of your overall health. And I've found there is, I don't think any correlation to me that seems to be as powerful as spending time outside. So if I'm spending all day outside, my heart rate variability overnight will be so much higher which is actually the opposite of only going outside before sunrise and after sunset.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
I know that's anecdotal, but it really
No, it is
is strong. And
important.
I've noticed it again this week in Portugal, coming back, just spending all day. I'm even working outside on a balcony or whatever, and it's just such a sort of healthy lifestyle, getting all that fresh air.
Exactly. Well, the studies have shown that people who spend most of their time on, at the beach or in coastal cities have far less depression than people who live in cities and far away from the sea and the sun. So we know that sun is indispensable to a point, but what he is doing, again, if he really exists, I would really like to meet this guy if he really exists. I'm pretty sure he has no muscle mass, nothing, and he lives a pretty sad life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's move on to your biohacking review then, Valerie. What would you like to review? What have you been using recently, which we could turn into our sort of second podcast of the week, the little 5-minute review? Is it a tech or techniques or a gadget or a supplement or a practice? Perhaps it's going outside.
All of the above.
All of the above. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, listen, and again, I'm not sponsored because I like to use products and have my own opinion. A month ago, exactly to that date, 2 months ago, I fell and broke both feet. So I had 2 fractures, 1 avulsion, 1 full fracture, and 3 sprains. Knowing that in 6 weeks, I'm going on an expedition, and 2 weeks later, I was going for a scuba diving trip. So when I saw the doctor, he's like, oh, you have to wear walking boots for 6 weeks and don't move. And I'm like, hold on. So I started doing hyperbaric chambers, PEMF, laser class 4, whatever. Long story short, after 5 days, I removed the main boot and I was able to walk, which is like, wow. And I've been using, I brought it for you. I really love these guys, Mito Red Light. I've been using this product here. It's a portable red light near infrared light. I have the big mat, obviously, which I don't have here. But when I travel, I wear this. And when I work on my sofa, I just put it next to my foot. That really, really helps reduce the inflammation and help with repairing. Of course, it's not as powerful as the big one, but it's my little travel thing because people always say, oh, you're a biohacker and you travel with a full suitcase of stuff, which is true. One of my suitcases is always with devices. Or I also use, and don't make fun of me, but I also use that helmet. Have you tried it?
Oh my goodness. What is it?
It's from the same brand. I love these guys because they actually indulge me when I want to try stuff. Mito Red Light. It's called the Mito Mind. So it helps. It has different settings. It helps reduce stress, increase focus. But I use the one for reducing stress on my body to heal faster. And in the morning, I use the 40 hertz because a big study was published recently on how you can reduce or stop completely Alzheimer's progress by exposing yourself to a 40 hertz pulsating red light for an hour a day. So since I've learned that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm wearing my helmet every morning when I'm working for an hour. And that's my brand new thing. Yeah.
Because that helmet, I'm pretty sure that I spoke to Dr. Andrew Hill on the podcast recently, who's a real expert in this area, and he loves that.
Yeah.
Absolutely loves it.
Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of research. Again, I don't jump on trend bandwagons and stuff. I love researching. And oh, you know what? I just launched a platform called biohacker.com. If you can tell people about it, because I share studies and I just talked about Alzheimer's and that helmet and other techniques. And I researched the field and I'm like, why don't people know about it? It's sometimes scary that we don't know about simple stuff.
Yeah. And just with the red light then, so did you say you broke both your feet, did you say?
Exactly 60 days ago, yes.
Oh my God.
I've done 42 summits over 4,000 meters in the past 7 years. I never broke anything. And then I'm just taking a little stroll. Of course, I was doing this, not looking where I was going.
Oh no.
I know. Don't tell anyone. No one knows it's the reason. So shh. And I heard the snap when I fell. It was so painful. I'm like, oh. So I was away from home, but right away I changed the whole thing. It's going to be in the next Biohacker magazine issue. I share my old routine to heal fast. 2 weeks later, I was scuba diving, 40 meters and stuff because I go deep, and I had zero pain. And I was like, oh my God, you can really speed up healing. It's not just, sometimes you hear techniques and you're like, is that going to work? That is the real proof. I mean, I did it, and within 5 days I could walk. I would not run a marathon, but I could function.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. And so and the thing obviously we're reviewing today, you really think that travel red light was just so
Yeah,
good because you could hold it there while you were
I
working.
just put it exactly, and on the plane and everywhere, you just like you have the 2 levels, and if you but it really works well. Again, it's not as powerful as the full standing panels and whatever, but it's really helping. And I can take it with me wherever I go. Again, otherwise I have the travel mat, and I mean, I use so many. I'm sure you too. But when I just spent 3 weeks in Turks and Caicos, and I had one suitcase with my diving stuff and one suitcase with the mat, the helmet, the shotgun, and all these things I bring with me. Yeah,
The shotgun.
not
That sounds.
shotgun. I don't know the word. What is it? The shock whatever therapy gun.
I know what you mean. I know what you
Also,
mean.
I'm Corsican. I might have a shotgun in my suitcase. You never know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, all that is absolutely amazing. And then just on the Val Biohacker stuff, have you? I mean, with Alzheimer's, I don't know if you've spoken to Dale Bredesen before, but he's just utterly brilliant. And he had the best-selling book on all of Amazon for 3 days called "The End of Alzheimer's." But he'd be great to speak to as well if you ever get a chance to chat to him on
Oh, yeah,
Instagram
I would like. If you
or
can
one of your
introduce me
platforms.
to him, I would love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think it's so interesting because I know you're obviously interested in that, and he has been a great inspiration for people who have issues with ApoE4 or have early stages dementia. He's really good actually. So,
My two
um,
grandmothers died super young of dementia. That's why I have this
mm,
obsession on how can I push it back and never have it.
yeah, yeah. So just before you go, I am really interested in knowing a little bit more about you then, because you've obviously got this platform that you've set up and you're doing all these crazy adventures as well. Just give us the lowdown on where you're going in Nepal and the South Pole sounded amazing as well.
So South Pole, it was 2 years ago. I skied to the South Pole, uh, pulling the
Wow.
sled, 3 girls and a guy, and it was amazing. You just get there. It's
Mm,
biohacking wise, not the best because you're exhausting your body and everything, but mentally it was like, one of a
mm,
lifetime. Then I climbed the highest summit in Antarctica as well, which is about almost 5,000, like 4.9
my
in
goodness.
meters, obviously. And then I decided, so we don't have time for that, but 7 years ago, I had a diagnostic of multiple sclerosis, which
Mm,
ended up either being wrong or I cured it. I don't care. I don't have it anymore. So, but this is when I decided to climb mountains. And
mm,
right now, because I do a full body MRI per year, I discovered all my climbing had impacted a little bit my brain. So now I decided to not go as high. So the next one is going to be only 6,400 meters, which is about 24,000, I think, feet.
yeah.
I'm taking women. I do twice a year, all women retreats, where we go either doing crazy things in Nepal, like climbing, or we go to
Mm,
Corsica and have this cool retreat on the beach. So, but the idea
mm.
is to climb twice a year, these crazy things across the world.
That's absolutely brilliant. That's so
Want to come
cool.
with me? Want to come with me?
Yeah, I do, but I don't think I qualify as one of the women that you're going to be taking with you.
Never know. Do some biohacking stuff long enough, and you might become one.
Oh, great. And you mentioned Val Biohacker. Where can people get involved in that and everything else that you do?
So you just do first follow me on Instagram, Valerie Orsoni, and then valbiohacker.com. I publish 3 in-depth dossiers per week. If you come from Tony, I'll give you a full, first month for free. But I really spend time on that. I have a team without behind me. I'm not alone, obviously, and
Mm,
it's a passion of mine. Also, debunking all the crazy myth around biohacking stuff is a
mm.
big deal for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that is really important, isn't it? And I think that biohacking gets such a bad rap, sometimes fairly and sometimes very unfairly, that it's good to have voices like yours who are sort of rigorously looking into this stuff. I mean, I'd love to have you on again anytime you want to come on here because it's really good. There's a real sort of journalistic enthusiasm that you bring to the topic of biohacking,
No,
which
thank
makes
you.
you a
That's
brilliant
exactly what
guest.
I want.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So please come on again. We'll book you in again for a couple of months' time.
Okay, I will come back.
Maybe after your next adventure.
Okay, no problem. I will share everything with you. Thank you so much, Tony, for having me on.
It's absolutely brilliant. Valerie, thank you so much for coming on as well. Really encourage everyone to follow Valerie or Sony. And thank you everyone for listening and watching. Make sure you get outside a lot, leave the hat and sunglasses inside and the sunbrella. And and I will see you next time.